In the first quarter of this year, almost 60% of all IPO proceeds were raised by companies listing in the U.S. That is a sharp jump. Take a look at this bar chart compared to previous quarters. You can see close to 60%. Well, Josef Schuster is the chief architect of the IPOX Indexes, an index series which focuses on global IPOs and spin-offs, and he joins us now from our Chicago bureau with more. Josef, thanks so much for joining us on this Friday. Let's talk about that bar chart there. That shift is quite dramatic. What's happening?
Well, it is quite dramatic. I mean, if you compare it to 1 year ago, it's just the opposite. 1 year ago, 20%. This year is actually 60%. I think it has to do with three factors. First of all, obviously, U.S. equities are doing quite well. There's risk appetite for U.S. deals, for U.S. domicile deals, but also deals coming from foreign markets. Second, the performance of IPOs on average has been very good. The ones which are especially domiciled in the US, there's a very good track record of investing in the IPOs, even in the aftermarket, which obviously stimulates the demand for IPOs here in the US. And thirdly, also that initial returns have been quite high in the US, so you have actually a pent-up demand of speculative traders who want to get into these respective IPOs, and therefore the investment banks are able to price these deals quite well, actually.
Now, who is listing, both in terms of, let's start with countries. Which countries are actually listing here? Is it, we've talked a lot on this program about the IPOs coming out of China, but what country is responsible for most of those listings?
It is a return of the good old traditional US domicile deals. I mean, that's where the interest has been. That's where the large gross proceeds have been raised, like the HCAs, the Kinder Morgans, the Nielsens of the world, private equity-backed IPOs by surprise. So it is really, responsibly, is really this return of the good old traditional US IPO, which has, on average, has done quite well.
Now, Josef, we also have seen some interesting headlines actually this week coming out of Brazil. There was one about looking for 200 IPOs by 2015. There was also another story about Sri Lanka IPOs. Where in the world are you seeing strength in the IPO market?
I do see strength in South Korea, in Malaysia, in Turkey, in Indonesia, maybe in Brazil as well. I mean, Brazil has some restrictions for foreigners to get into IPOs. There's a 2% fee there. So that's where I see the most interest right now. By surprise, I mean, even markets are relatively strong in London or in Europe, as well as in Hong Kong. Since many IPOs have actually not been able to price, actually have traded down from their offering price recently, especially in the Hong Kong market.
And then what companies or what IPOs that are scheduled right now are you looking at that you think are ones that are bound for success?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Obviously, next week's a big highlight here is IPO of the Chinese internet provider Renren. The books look very fully covered. I mean, they even raised the rate to the range today. So that's going to be a quite hot IPO. And Yandex, Russian internet provider, going public here in the US, probably later in May. And Boeing Go as well here in the US. So these are the key three deals I'm looking for in the immediate future.
All right, Josef, thank you so much for joining us out of our Chicago bureau. That was Josef Schuster, the founder of IPOX Schuster.